Welcome back to the latest edition of Until Saturday. I'm Ari Wasserman, joined by David Ubben, and always a friendly face. Always happy to have Max Olson on. How are we doing today, Max?
Good. I think this is my first picks episode of the year, right? I'm honored.
Is it really?
Honored to be invited.
Is that was like a mistake in the system somehow? I don't know how that happened. But
we got a lot of good people to have on here.
Did you go look through the stats and come up with your plays of were you really into this?
Yeah,
because we're
I'm
terrible
not winging
at
it.
And we try really hard and stink at it because, as we always do, I let everybody know these are the biggest, most entertaining games that everybody in college football is excited to watch. And those are usually the hardest games to bet on. So we're doing our best. We're going to go through them. We have some pretty big games. My dream of Texas making the playoff might end this weekend. I'm a little bit nervous about that. We'll dive into that. But first, let me just welcome everybody back officially to the Week 10 pick show. We got some important Big 12 games, some SEC divisional games, and is Washington Ralph on the school bus? I'm in danger. I think that's possible. Be sure to follow the podcast on Apple, wherever you listen to your podcast. Drop us a 5-star review. If you're here watching it live, we certainly appreciate it. Hope you're subscribed to the YouTube channel. If you're listening to this in podcast form and you want to see us go live on Thursday, Saturday, and Sunday, be sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel. Those links will all be found in the show's description on both platforms. Power Hour will also be streaming live their reaction to the college football playoff rankings reveal on Tuesday evenings. And the podcast will also publish Tuesday nights once those rankings reveal. Lastly, if you want to be a part of Sunday's Sound Off show where we play your voicemails on the show and react to them, or you just want to call in and let us know what you think about an opinion that we've had, we'd love to hear from you. The phone number is 316-462-9852. Again, that is 316-462-9852. You can also text that line, but we will certainly favor the voices because, listen, who doesn't like being called an asshole? I do. Sign up for the Until Saturday newsletter, aptly named the same thing. You get your daily fill of college football directly to your inbox from the Athletics writing team. You do not have to be subscribed to the Athletic to get that newsletter, but if you're not subscribed to the Athletic, don't know what you're doing. And of course, all the lines that we present to you on the show are brought to you by BetMGM. What do we say? Let's get into it here. Let's start off with, we're going to build up to Texas. I don't know if I want to start right off to Texas because I'm going to build up to Texas. Yeah, I don't know if I'm emotionally this is it. All right, let's start with Texas. All right. We're playing, and when I say we, I mean like me as part of the team. Like I am a Longhorn. Texas is playing Kansas State. They are 7-1, 4-1. They are laying 4. Kansas State 6-2, 4-1. This is a game that's going to go a long way in determining the Big 12 championship game. Levels of concern. We'll start with you, Max. You know a lot about Texas. You used to live in Austin. You showed me the best barbecue place I've ever had. Terry Black's, I think, beat Heim. I hate to tell you, Dave, it was really, really good.
We don't have time. I'll listen. I'll defend Heim when the time is right.
Heim is amazing. It's just Terry Black.
But I live on the bacon burn ends are what takes Heim to the next level. The brisket is very good. It's high level Texas brisket. I believe there's some brisket in Texas better, but the bacon burn ends, nobody does them better than Heim.
Guys, this is comparison's the thief of joy. They're both amazing. Let's not hate.
It's true.
Yeah.
So Ari's not Ema this week. Ari is Emal, I guess.
I believe Emal is right. Yes,
Emal. Ari, I'm not trying to set you off here, but I'm extremely concerned about Malik Murphy in this game.
You're not setting me off.
I feel like
you're not saying anything I'm not unaware of.
I'm not doubting, but it's kind of like this is a kind of a deer in headlights kind of possibility here. They get stripped and pressured into some big mistakes. Mm-hmm. Kansas State knows how to get stops in the red zone, and if you watch some of these big games Texas has played the last 2 years, that's been kind of the Achilles heel a little bit that for Sark's offense is can you finish these drives with touchdowns.
The stat, actually, not to interrupt you, but the stat is that K-State is a top 5 red zone defense, and I think that Texas is outside of the top 100. I just want to that's concerning.
K-State, 20 red zone trips this season for the defense, only 6 touchdowns allowed. Texas defense, actually, in terms of allowing touchdowns, 6 touchdowns on 22. So Texas defense pretty good in this spot too, but I kind of like K-State +4 here, guys. I don't know. This would be extremely impressive if Malik Murphy can be the guy they need him to be on passing downs, and they can just really lean on Brooks and Baxter in this game. But I don't know, guys. I feel like these are. I think this is the Big 12 title game. These two, I still feel like
really interesting. I mean, I'm just not sure that K-State's not going to just throw 7 guys in the box and say, "All right, if you want to, you're not going to run on us." Like,
right,
Malik, if you're going to be the guy, be the guy. I think if this was in Manhattan, I would love K-State money line. It's in Austin. I merely like K-State money line here. Just K-State is so tough and so disciplined. I mean, it's kind of amazing that it feels like K-State had Bill Snyder for a long time, made a ill-advised hire, brought him back, and then when they got their next hire, it seems like they may have found like the next Bill Snyder. Like Chris Kleiman and his teams look remarkably similar, and play remarkably similar in just terms of they just don't beat themselves. And I think, Malik Murphy didn't get pushed last week. Ari, you watched that game more closely than I did. I had it on like my 5th screen. How many pressure throws did he have to make? Like a 3rd down in a close game. It didn't seem like a lot.
The thing about the game last week,
and
I don't know if you watched it, Max. I'm sure you stepped into it a little bit. I don't know. But Texas was winning the game so easily, like it almost didn't matter.
Sure.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And that's what's concerning because like I think he threw early picks and they were still winning by a pretty comfortable margin pretty early on. And like if we're going to be comparing what he did last week to what he's going to be facing this week, I think it's a completely different scenario. Now, we came into the season, or I did anyway, thinking that based on what I saw from him physically and what we had heard, and of course, he had a really good spring game. And anytime anybody has a good spring game, you get kind of, tingly inside. I saw it. I always thought like coming into the year, this guy could have left this year with his placement, his weird, odd placement on the depth chart between these 2 quarterbacks and Quinn Ewers and Arch Manning and started somewhere as soon as this year. So like I was always kind of, and maybe that was just like buying into the hype too much or seeing the size, but I just thought that somebody who's built like that at the very least could be a functional starting quarterback from a running standpoint. Like he doesn't have to be Joe Montana out there, but just his body type. I've seen a lot of teams win a lot of college football games in the battering ram at quarterback, and I think he could do that. That said, if your second start in unexpected start is against a team that is trying to win the Big 12, that's a really tough battle. Like I am coming into this, like, listen, we've got 2 things working against us here, guys. Or I keep saying we, like me is one, this is the game that Texas always seems to lose, even when they're healthy. And now they have a quarterback that we're not 100% sure of. So like, I don't know. Do we like Kansas State here, guys? And I'll ask both of you this, because this is the patented letdown spot that Texas always seems to not be able to get over. Or are you not are you concerned with the quarterback play? Because I don't want to pick Kansas State because I want to. Like Kansas State's the play. Everybody likes Kansas State. But are we picking Kansas State because we think they're – because I will say this. I watched Kansas State play Oklahoma, and they look like they forgot how to play for 4 quarters. So, like, that's in them. I've watched that. Like, it's in Austin.
And Texas has had K-State's number for the last few years, too.
So what's going into the calculus of K-State here? Is it quarterback, or is it Texas isn't possibly going to be able to get to do what we think, or what Ari thinks he's going to do?
K-State's been red hot the last few weeks. They did forget how to play football in Stillwater that Friday night game. That was odd, but that was also like, it's like the ball in Space Jam where like all of their powers transferred onto Oklahoma State, and both teams since that game have been like playing unbelievable football. And K-State's been red hot. Discovering Avery Johnson has given them a really interesting wrinkle to the offense. Also, Ari, have you seen Avery Johnson's hair? It's fantastic.
Yeah, I saw it at the Elite 11. It's
possible. So it's possible that he stole Quinn Ewers' mullet and his ability at quarterback. I don't think we can rule that out.
So people think that he's just like Johnny Football. Is that where we're at yet?
I think he has a long way to go as a passer, but when you're that athletic and that fast, and you have Will Howard, who I think is really underrated as a passer, and they've found a way to kind of use them in interesting ways. For me, it's both. It's that Texas. I don't think this is a letdown spot because I think K-State is good, and they're playing seemingly their best football right now, and they have a lot to play for. And one of these teams is the defending Big 12 champion. All right, let's not forget that as well.
The other thing here, just in my history covering Texas in the past, if I'm you, Ari, I want to see a hot start from Texas. You don't want the sleepy first quarter on Big Noon kickoff where it's just like 3-3 midway through the second quarter or something like that, and you're sort of like, what are they doing? Like I think if this is going to be like a statement game for Malik Murphy and for Texas, I think you want to see some scoring drives early and often.
Yeah, if either of these teams go down double digits, I don't love it. Neither one of them are built to throw their way back into games. But if one of these teams gets on top of the other by double digits, it's going to be hard for either of them to climb that mountain. Also,
we don't have this very often, guys, anymore, but this is the fourth time Will Howard is playing Texas. So I'm sure he wants this one. He's 0-3 in these.
Listen, if Texas, can I just ask you guys your opinion about this? If Texas loses this game and it's because they just have poor quarterback play, does that mean I was wrong? Or do I get like a get out of jail free card here?
If they lose like 41-10, you were wrong. But I don't think I'm going to say no because
they don't lose like that to these teams.
K-State is good. K-State is good. Well, hang on, Ari.
Do they?
K-State, they have. K-State is good, and Texas doesn't have a guy who. I mean, if you were ranking the percentage of reasons that Texas beat Alabama this year, Quinn's play was like 35%, probably, right? I mean, he made
some great game
throws in that game.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So I wouldn't say you're wrong unless they just get punked, and I don't think they're going to get punked, but I do think they lose this game.
I'm going to lay the 4.
Nothing you can say would change my mind.
Yeah, no, I'm bought into the bit here. You know what I mean? Like, sure. It's not. Yeah. That's not. I don't know. Is it a bit?
I think Texas winning by any margin would be impressive, right?
Yeah.
For where they're trying to go, that would be impressive.
And the thing is that like your thing, Dave, was does Texas lose to a team they have no business losing to? I do not think that applies here.
No, I don't think so either.
So
I think K-State is good.
Mm-hmm. No, they got a road trip to Ames coming up though. Just gonna
that's where we're concerned.
You going?
I would love to. That mid-November game, hopefully a night game in Ames. Yeah, that's
didn't they get shut out in Ames a few years ago? Max. Yeah. So
the thing that I'm afraid of is that Texas is going to finish 9-3, and I'm not going to feel like I was wrong, and we're going to argue about it because like it's like they're going to finish 9-3, and they won't have lost that Iowa State game.
Texas and USC both go like 9-3, and you're just kind of patting them.
But then,
the head like,
I punted on USC though. I punted on USC.
Okay. Me calling my shot that Texas would beat Alabama and not win the Big 12 or make the playoff. Then technically, because my accuracy was so precise, I get more credit for being right than you not being wrong. Am I wrong?
Well, here's the thing. If I were right, I'll take away my excuses. If I were right, this Texas team this Texas team should still beat this team. Like if I were like truly right in the spirit of this is a playoff team, even without Quinn Ewers, they still should be able to, athlete their way to
that's true.
A close
Alabama did beat Arkansas last year and Texas A&M without Bryce Young. So.
I also think that Kansas State is just going to be a very trendy pick. I think everybody's going to be on Kansas State, and like I kind of like going against the grain on that. So
I kind of feel like on Sunday morning, if K-State wins this game, Sunday morning Ari's going to be tweeting that 2-loss Texas is still a playoff team. That's
Well, I don't know where we stand on.
You're already doing it with USC this week, so I could see you doing it with Texas.
Here's the thing: the USC take. I don't think there's any chance they're going to do it. Like I think they stink. So like I'm out. I wrote
bad news for you. 52% of the money is on Texas.
Okay, God. I'm rolling with my guys. So right. I think that's a nice segue to another Big 12 game because it's the last Bedlam for the foreseeable future, if ever. Sad. I didn't really like Mike Gundy's comments this week about how it's not a rivalry the way it was before and stuff. It's just like, come on, show some respect to the last game here and want to grind their bones into the ground. Like I want Oklahoma State to want this game more than anybody wants a game this year because it's an important way to kind of depart here. And Oklahoma State, who we thought for a while there was a complete dumpster fire this year, all of a sudden is playing very good football. And I think it's another testament to just the amazing consistency that he has illustrated as Oklahoma State's coach. Oklahoma is coming off of a loss. Kansas, I don't think is an embarrassing team to lose to anymore, but still a tough loss. Max, what's your take on this one here as we get going?
All right, do you know off the top of your head Oklahoma's record against Gundy?
I don't know. But based on that question, probably not as good as I would have thought. No, it's pretty good. It's pretty lopsided, isn't it?
It's 15-3 right now. Yeah, it's 15-3.
Okay. Yeah, I was just trying to think the last time they won. I can't even remember the last time Oklahoma State won the game.
21. They beat
21, which was one of the best games I've ever covered. Yeah,
that was the Caleb
incredible.
Williams crying game.
Oh yeah. I remember that game. Yeah, I remember that game.
That was the Lincoln Riley left town.
Guys, I'm not going to LSU.
Right. Yeah, that was the Lincoln Riley's not taking LSU game. I think, we had some epic games in 21, 18, 17. I think that just covering OU last week against Kansas, I'll tell you what, guys, like this OU fan base, you get the sense they're very fed up with Jeff Lebby, and this is a very interesting spot for Jeff Lebby against Brian Nardo. I think that's going to be an interesting matchup. Oklahoma State's scoring offense, top 10 nationally in the month of October during this 4-game win streak. There's a lot to like about Oklahoma State. Ollie Gordon has been ridiculous. I'm still going with OU. Like it's just kind of been, even in the years when you feel like, oh man, this is the year for Oklahoma State to get them. They kind of, shoot themselves in the foot and Oklahoma runs away with it. Like last year when OU was horrible, they still had no trouble putting away Oklahoma State. So I lean Sooners because there's just a lot of pressure on OU this week.
Yeah, I mean, when Gundy has beaten Oklahoma State or Oklahoma, pretty much every time it has been because he's had the better team. Now, there was one game in like 05 where he didn't necessarily have a better team, but they don't really spring upsets on OU. And they've lost a lot of games when they have had a much better team to Oklahoma. They don't have a much better team here. Oklahoma's clearly a better team. Oklahoma State's been playing well. But Gundy doesn't have the better team here, at least not clearly the better team. And Oklahoma will be focused. Like you said, Max, I don't think like there's any shame in losing to Kansas, but that gets your attention. You're playing for your playoff life here. And even that, you might still need some help. So you're going to get a focus Oklahoma. The defense is good enough to slow down Ollie Gordon. And like the Cowboys will be a trendy upset pick, no question. But this rivalry, it does mean a lot to Venables.
Why do you gloss over the idea of like the defense is good enough to stop Ollie Gordon? Like why? Like I was watching the Kansas game last week, and I felt like OU was not going to get a stop. Like that's like the thing that's so crazy to me about
Jason Bean running around though.
No, I know. I mean, I'm not saying it's the same position, but I don't like the feeling of when you're watching a game knowing that the team is not going to be able to stop the opposition, no matter what they're doing. It's like
I think they do. That's what I'm saying. I think so. For me, OU gets the win in the cover here. I'll lay the points for the Sooners.
Does Oklahoma State have the best player?
Is Stutzman going to be okay?
Good questions. These are good questions.
Mixed things about him. This is injuries in college football are always a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think that Ollie Gordon is going to get just get straight up like, oh, he's going to have like a 20 for 60 kind of game. Like I think he's going to get his, but it's certainly going to to be on It's certainly going to be on Alan Bowman playing a really efficient game, and
that's where we start getting nervous.
Yeah. But you know what? I'll tell you what. Kansas made a ton of mistakes last week and still was able to play with Oklahoma till the end. So it's not. I don't think it's that tense for Oklahoma State that they're like one mistake away from this unraveling. But man, they got to play so clean in this game.
Here's the thing too that I'm. If this game, under the same circumstances were being played in the 90s or the 80s, I might feel a little bit differently about it but do you feel like the players on the team at Oklahoma, I know the fans and the coach are very bitterly disappointed in what's going on with the reorganization of the sport and what Texas and Oklahoma did with the SEC. I don't think the players get that mad about stuff like that. Like, I don't know if the players themselves have a burning desire to win this game, because I just think they have TikTok and all the other things that they're concerned about. And it just doesn't, it
depends
resonate.
On the kid. I don't know the breakdown of Oklahoma's roster of Oklahoma kids versus Texas kids. Usually it's like what are Max 65?
I think Oklahoma's roster, I think, has far less percentage points of Oklahoma kids on their roster than Oklahoma State, right?
Probably.
Oklahoma State is definitely more
Oklahoma,
more in state.
It does mean a lot in the state. Now, in general, I lived in Oklahoma City for like 9 months. I've covered the Big 12 for a long time. Like, Oklahoma State is probably 15 to 20% of the fans in the state. There is definitely a big brother, little brother dynamic there. And going out, I mean, punching your big brother in the face before he goes out to college and you don't see him for 4 years, there's a welcoming to that. So it's going to be a tough atmosphere. But I don't know. I think I wouldn't say the whole roster is foaming at the mouth, on both sides here.
Also, I think
a
lot of guys picture that. Matter. I think people want that to be the case, Dave. Go ahead, Max.
There's a lot of people that are.
This offseason, we did have a starter for Oklahoma State, Trace Ford, transferred to Oklahoma, and he is playing a lot for the Sooners. So you would think in the past, like in big rivalries, that's like unthinkable, right? But I think you're probably onto something there, Ari, that like to the players, it's not necessarily that deep, and there's not anybody necessarily like bawling that they won't get to play Oklahoma next year. But I still think like Boone Pickens Stadium is going to be absolutely lit for this.
Yeah, the fans. I
can't wait to see it.
Yeah. Also, too, I'm going to lay the 6 because I just think Oklahoma's a better football team.
Well, now I'm worried if we're all three going to go with OU here.
Yeah, I'm going OU as well.
If it were like 7.5, I might think about it, but like less than a touchdown, like coming off of a loss.
3 quick things before we move along. 1, Boone Pickens, very underrated place to play. It's unbelievably close to the sidelines. The paddle people, it is loud in there.
Yeah.
2, I'm disappointed that 1, this game is not the end of the season, which it feels like there should be OU's Big 12 finale. And 2, this game should be at night. It's 3:30. That kind of sucks. Yeah. I don't love those things, but the game itself will be awesome.
All right, let's segue into the next big game. The game that, I've got a feeling deep in my plums about. And if you haven't watched Eastbound and Down, I don't know what you're doing. Incredible show. Washington 8-0, 5-0, -3 at USC, 7-2, 5-1. USC is 2 successful 2-point conversions away from being a 4-loss team this year. To Cal and Arizona could have won if they had more functional 2-point conversion attempts. God, USC stinks, but God, I just can't help but shake the notion that they're going to win.
We all see you buying the dip. We see what you're doing here.
Am I nuts to think, like, first of all, this spread is nothing. 3 is nothing.
Yeah.
USC's defense is pitiful. The team doesn't even look like they're functional. But, like, is this the spot? Like, am I nuts? Does anybody buying it with me here?
Well, here's the thing, Ari.
Why is the spread 3?
Because we don't know what's going on with Washington, okay? Is there something weird that happened
in the last 2 games?
In the game? But then since then, are they just getting a lot more too high safety looks? And like Arizona State gave teams a blueprint on how to stop them, and people have better athletes in Arizona State. I don't really know. I don't know that I really buy that because they've been doing the same thing that they did last year, and we're still killing it. Does Washington have the longest hangover in college football history after the Oregon game? Were they overrated a little bit? I really don't know the answer to this. But I know that if you look at the totality of what we've seen from these teams, you cannot, in good faith, take USC. They have still maybe the worst vibes of any team we've seen.
They are like number 1 in the college football bad vibe ranking for sure.
It's just unbelievable. The vibes coming out of there are just like, I don't want to be around that. So no,
I think you actually have to be.
I think what you're hitting on too is that after they beat Oregon, there are a lot of people kind of like praising him as like maybe this is the number 1 team in the country, and it's just been all grab ass since then.
Mm-hmm. It has been all grab ass since then. I also think that USC has an offense in the right type of game that can keep up with Penix. Like if they can get some stops, now that is where we get to a point where I'm a little bit uncertain. I don't love this. Like if I would have just like closed your eyes, we're not lines makers. Okay. We're not, quants like our friends at the MGM. But if I would have just said before coming into the week, what is the line Washington at USC? Like, wouldn't it have been like 7?
I would have said like 9, maybe. Yeah.
Maybe 10.
Guys, should the total be 100 in this game? Like what do you think it actually should be?
It is 76.
Going that way?
If Washington had not done what they've done the last 2 weeks, we would have got into the 80s. I have no doubt about that.
I like if you look at Washington and their schedule, if they don't get got in this one, like I think the road to 12-0 is really not that bad for them from here on out, right? So that almost like it's a little bit tempting to go with USC. I kind of want to pick USC in this game, but like I think we all know Kalen DeBoer and Ryan Grubb are just going to put them through hell, right? I mean, it's this the scoring defense in the month of October is at 43 points per game. That's bottom 5 nationally, in case you didn't know. I kind of, but the weird thing is like I kind of wish the number were like 6, and then I would be like on SC plus 6, but like three's tough. Like
I'm nervous. I won't be surprised if this doesn't go the Huskies' way, but you got to go Washington here.
But the thing too is this, like, Washington is getting nagged a little bit for playing grab ass the last 2 weeks. Yeah. What the hell has USC been doing?
Well, that's who USC is. That side like, all right, there is a world.
They're just losing.
There's a world in which Washington wins this game like 56-27.
Right,
and
right.
Like,
Don't you just kind of wish gambling was as simple as identifying which team was better and then picking them to win? Like, it's hard. Like, there's something weird about this game.
Yeah,
that I just like. I feel like my brain is like Washington. Michael Penix is going to like ice his Heisman numbers on Saturday. Like, this is a terrible defense that can't stop anybody. Cal scored 49 points and almost won by scoring 51. They were 2 yards away from. Like, what are we talking about here? That said, I'm taking the points.
I'm taking Washington. I'm taking the points. Yeah. What can you do?
Yeah, Matthew C. here's asking me, what stage of grief am I in? I'm in acceptance mode. Yeah, I got it. Like, listen, the thing
checkbook is out. Let's be honest, guys.
Yeah, the one good thing is that when I was a half a football away from cashing that bet last year, I was with Andy. And Andy was talking to me about, okay, well, I'll pay you if they win tonight, but we're going to a nice steak dinner. Like, we're going to live it up. Mm-hmm. Keep that energy when the money comes your way, pal. Like, I don't know, you're going to get me some sort of gift card, or you're going to take me to dinner. It's a, I'm going to enjoy this a little bit too, but I think that there is little to zero chance that USC makes the playoff next year too. The thing that it really, really bothers me about this team is that I don't know if you can point, and don't even just talk about this year or like what's happening on the field right now. What is the thing that USC is doing in any aspect of its program that makes you think I can grab onto that? They're going to be great. And if you would have asked me that, or told me that I'm asking that question when the day after Lincoln got hired in year 2 in November, I would have been like, what the hell is going on here? Like, I am worried about everything with that program. They're not recruiting at a high enough level. Their defensive coordinator remains employed. I don't know what's going to happen after this year, but their defense is terrible. I don't know if they're bringing in enough talent to rectify that. And it's like, what's going to happen when their schedule is just Utah every week next year?
All right, I hear what you're saying, but I'm gonna preach to you what you preach to yourself very often. Okay, and that is that stars matter. All right, and at the end of the day, they're still the 8th most talented team in America. And as we look at it now, that would put them at, 2nd in the Big Ten, behind only your beloved Ohio State Buckeyes.
My beloved Ohio State. I'm a Buckeye guy. Yeah.
So I hear what you're saying, and I on paper I agree with you, but also talent talks, and
I have
figured out some schematic things. I think things look better in a hurry.
I'm going to say something, and then I'm going to duck.
Oh gosh.
I don't think there is nuance to the Stars Matter discussion. I don't know.
Can we clip just that? Can we clip just that one, Cam, before he keeps going? There's nuance to the Stars Matter discussion. Okay, keep going.
I have been concerned, and this isn't just now. This is like when Clay Helton was there, because they still were in this, and they had one class that ranked like 76th, and I think to this day don't even know how that's possible. If the players in California who are ranked in the top 100 are as good as the players in Georgia who are ranked in the top 100, I have some questions about that.
Yeah, fair question.
I also have some questions about their ability to evaluate. There are a lot of players that are misranked, and I think USC might be recruiting more of them than others. So, like, on paper,
well, but they didn't do that. They didn't do that at OU. That wasn't happening.
But there's no. What are we looking at here? We're looking at and here's another thing too, especially if you want to use these numbers in the Lincoln Riley era. if you get a bunch of 5-star prospects at the receiver and the quarterback position, and all of your linemen and defenders are at the bottom half of your classes, and you do that 4 years in a row, you're going to have really good talent composite, but you're not going to have a well-constructed team. So like there are things about them that are just, it's just concerning. And the thing that I will ask you both, and just tell me if I'm wrong about it, what are they doing right now from a recruiting, a talent accumulation, or a coaching standpoint that you think is the key to the future of this turnaround? Because I can't think of one thing that I would buy stock in.
Tackle more this offseason, guys, and mind the portal.
Yeah, I'm sure they're pretty confident that in December they're going to do what they've done the last 2 years and load up with a lot of guys that want to live in LA and make some money and be on that platform.
I hope you're right. I hope those players who are making the money help me keep mine. So we'll see. All right. The next game that Dave and I were in a texting battle about yesterday. Oh. And Dave is going to, I forgot to mention, the Texas game is my trap game of the week. I should have mentioned that when we were talking about it. I don't know if that counts as a trap game of the week because they're actually.
I don't think so, but
it really doesn't. But it's my trap game of the week. Okay, it's my pick, and it's like I'm calling it a trap for my own personal well-being. Okay, so just accept.
It's my trap, and I want it now.
Yeah,
you are going to be in a glass case of emotion throughout the game.
Yes,
you're the one who's trapped.
I'm nervous. Yeah, no, I'm legitimately more locked in on that game than any other game of the weekend. Like just from a curiosity standpoint. Cut the Texas bit. I don't care if they win or lose. But from a curiosity standpoint of, is this a legitimate national championship contender, or is this a team that fooled me, is just inherently interesting. So I'm excited to see that.
It's a big win. If they can get out of there just with a victory, whatever it takes, that's a huge win for Sark. And that tells me a lot about because you need everybody around Malik to step up. And if that happens, they can win that game. If it doesn't happen, they will lose.
Xavier Worthy is so good. He is so good. Okay, sorry. Whew. Georgia at home, 8-0, 5-0 in SEC play, laying 15.5 against Mizzou. Your beloved Mizzou Tigers, to borrow a term you went to school there. Dave is under this preconceived notion that
gosh, here we go.
You're going to the game.
Yes,
you're going to Georgia this week, and in your heart, you think this is going to be a good game.
This is what you guys were fighting about?
Yes. And he goes,
I think it can be. I think this is up to Georgia.
Before the call started, or we went live, Dave said something interesting. And he goes, and I said, it's going to be really hard for you to write a good column if this is a blowout. I had a hard time in Jacksonville last week. And not to mention there were 4 people there too, which makes it a little bit more difficult. But if Mizzou loses 52-10 or something, or let's make it nicer, 34-10. You're going to have a hard time writing a column off of that game.
I'll just send your column from last week through ChatGPT, change a couple of key phrases.
Then you said,
go, baby.
You said, but I haven't seen Georgia in person this year, and I think that will be valuable.
Yes.
Let me tell you, I saw them in person last week for the first time this year. The podcast tenor reflected that. And I think Mr. I'm taking the points is going to be in for a nice kick in the groin here. This is my lock of the week, and it's just a personal lock of the week, just because I think David is sipping the Kool-Aid. It's men versus boys, faster versus fast, stronger versus strong. And it's going to happen again, bud. And your 3-star offensive tackle who transferred in from a D2 school isn't going to be able to handle these guys. I'm telling you, man. I'm just telling you.
I want to know if can we get focused Georgia 2 weeks in a row? This is not a rivalry.
Be focused?
Well, this is not a rivalry game. And does that little number next to Mizzou's name mean anything to Georgia? I don't really know. Yeah. But I think this game is up to Georgia because if
Kirby's
Georgia
a dog.
plays,
Kirby is going to be telling his team that their quarterback is the best in the SEC. Let's go wreck him.
Yeah.
I think it's going to be I'm going to say this 28-0 at the end of the first quarter.
Okay.
Ooh.
This is a house money special here. All right. And Mizzou and Eli Drinkwitz, they can let it rip. All right. So here's my question, Ari. And I think ultimately it just comes down to Georgia. Because Mizzou's going to do what Mizzou's going to do. They have good weapons. I think they can put some points on the board. Mizzou, if you want to, label the fraudulent label based on their wins, okay. You have Kansas State that took a small miracle, but it's, beyond that, there's not a ton to sort of write home about.
It's not about fraudulent. It's not about fraudulent.
I know, but my point is that this game is up to Georgia, okay? If the Georgia that played against Auburn and South Carolina shows up, Mizzou can, and I would argue will, win this game. If Georgia plays a A- game, they will win, and they might cover. If they play an A to A+ game, it could get ugly, okay? Because they can win this game in the trenches.
All right, you were there last weekend, right? You saw, I assume Georgia sent the backups in the fourth quarter, right?
They're animals, yeah.
Would the backups win this game?
Yeah.
If they go second string this week, would Georgia win?
Well, it is a serious question that needs to be asked. And in most years, I mean, I don't know. This Georgia team is probably, 20% worse than last year's? I don't know if you could put a number on it. 20%. So
they don't wow you. Like, clearly, I think there's a case for them as the best team in the country, but you don't just watch them and you're like, oh my gosh.
There were years when I was covering Ohio State. There were years where Alabama was great, where I think the twos on those teams could win their conference.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know about going undefeated, but they don't.
What's the line? Is it like Georgia by 1 if it's all second string?
Probably.
Yeah, probably.
It's in Athens. I mean, I don't know.
Vandegrift, it's time to eat, my guy.
Yeah.
Well, a lot of those second stringers play a lot on the lines. That's the thing too that people don't realize that you guys do, but people don't. I'm
just taunting Dave. No, I'm with you on Georgia's going to cover this. I don't think there's the Tigers have a lot to prove, not just something.
Every single year, the last few years during Georgia's run, there was a game. I think it was against Kentucky 2 years ago where Kentucky was 5-0 coming into the game, and they were getting like 18 points going into the game. And I remember Andy and I were on here talking about Kentucky's finally the final version of itself, and Georgia, might look past them or whatever. And I think the score was 24-0 at the end of the first quarter. And I was like, what the hell are we doing here? And it's like that to me, I would rather be wrong riding Georgia than pretending like the other team is physically equipped to compete. I'm not going to sit here and
15 points is a lot, Ari.
It's not that many when a team gets rolling, let me tell you. That's Florida how much it was.
I will say, if you want to go half full here on Missouri for a sec, with the exception of the LSU game where they gave up 49, they've held everybody else under 30. So it's could you – I'm not saying it's moral victory here, but I'm just saying could this be a game where it's we're only down 10 going into the fourth, and it's not impossible we can make this interesting.
And if they are down by 10 going into the fourth, they still might not cover. The best case scenario for them is to be within 2 scores or a score going into the fourth. And then it's still if
it's 10 points going into the fourth, Ari's got his phone in his hand and he's putting some, he's
making moves.
Money.
I would like to know more. I'm not really sure the answer to this question. I would like to know more about the Auburn and the South Carolina games. Was there something schematically that put them in sort of a tizzy? Was it an effort thing? I'd be curious.
Did you watch the South Carolina game though?
I did, and it just looked weird. Georgia had no sense of offensively kind of what they were doing.
They basically just ripped their heart out in the second half again. It's the same
yeah,
story.
If you pitch a second half shutout in that situation, it is.
Yeah, didn't they win? I think they came close to covering
24-14.
Didn't
they didn't cover, no. But
no, okay.
I think they were
down 14-7 at halftime.
14-3.
And then Georgia was
14-3.
14-3 at halftime, and then Georgia's okay, we're going to play our football, and then South Carolina, when Georgia is playing its best game, the other team can't do anything.
Now that's true. I think that's true.
When that's happening, are we going to see a game where Mizzou just can't? Luther Burden's really good. Mm-hmm. He's going to be an NFL player for a very long time. That's not enough. I mean, you need more than a really good receiver. Wasn't Mizzou clamoring to have their quarterback benched a month ago? They're going into Stanford, Ari, and you're not going to lay the 15.
Ari, you should read the story on The Athletic about Missouri to learn the behind the scenes situation for that. I wrote about it.
You did. I don't read your stories, dude. I can't handle it. You cook your food in the dishwasher. Just so everybody knows, after the show's over, Dave has to go to the melting pot to get his credit card because he left it there when he went to the melting pot. So he remembered to bring home the raw meat, but he left the credit card.
We know what he's really doing. He's going during off hours to see how much raw meat he can buy.
Yeah, you could go into the back room and buy it before they cook it, right?
If I did order some, and if I said, "Hey, you got a half pound of filet mignon," and took it back, I could probably swing that, right?
He's winking at the waiter. He's saying, "How's the filet looking today? Can I
go to the grocery store?
Look at that marbling. Look at it."
Yeah, Dave is the guy who goes to a high-end restaurant where they let you take your steak out.
Give me your most scalding pot of liquid to dip this in now.
Have you ever been to like a place? Does Ruth's Chris do this where they like show you your meat and you get to pick out your cut and then they put it up?
Maybe. I haven't been to Ruth's Chris.
Would you just take it home?
There. No. They've got better means to cook it.
So you're just sitting in your kitchen cooking your raw meat last weekend and you didn't have your credit card. I just picture Dave standing over his stove wearing a wife beater, flipping over his meat without his credit card at home. It's like, priorities.
Well, we went on Friday night, and then Saturday I was at home watching games, and then Sunday I can't remember what we did. I think I maybe figured it out after church, but I figured out. But the problem is that we live not very close to downtown, and so and they don't open most of the time until like late afternoon, and we have a baby, and like I'm getting to downtown, like making that trip at night is like very inconvenient.
Could have just canceled the card and gotten a new one, and it would have been mailed faster than this is taking you.
I'm not gonna do that.
It does feel like an RE move, though.
What about you?
That's definitely an RE move.
I have a credit card that one of the services is, if you lose your card, they like ship you a new one very quickly. Mm-hmm. So like if I leave my card in a bar, I just don't go back. But it is a pain in the ass to like retype all your numbers in and stuff to all the places.
Because I like problem.
Yep.
So my nightmare.
Max, are you on Mizzou? Are you taking Mizzou here, Dave?
No. I'm
I'll take Mizzou here just for the sake
psychopath.
of it.
You're with me though, right, Max?
Yeah, come on. Are you doing a first half one here? Are you getting any action?
I'm gonna do first quarter. I think I'm gonna do first quarter. I'm gonna do first half. I'm gonna do game. I'm gonna do everything. And then if Mizzou
can you bet the first quarter line after the coin toss?
No, not that I'm aware of.
Well, because
or if you do the odds are very skewed, so it might be like -110 before the game.
You're gonna get some like incredible number for like 20.5 in the first quarter, and it's gonna.
Well, I think like
the first quarter line might only be like 3.
Yeah,
if you could script it up, and then Florida cut through Georgia pretty quickly on their first drive, and I wonder if Mizzou would do something similar. We'll see.
Also, too, if the first quarter bet loses, then you can bet live and get a better number in. They were giving away free money at the in Jacksonville last weekend. Let's put it that way.
That's the thing you should be excited about, Dave, is Ari losing money on the Tigers multiple times throughout the game. That's on the table.
Listen, if Mizzou wins this game, the Saturday night show is going to be must watch television because
and we're going to be talking
hilarious.
We're going to be talking CFP Mizzou. You know what I mean?
I love it when Georgia
gets
into
the
down.
top 4, just like that.
I love it when Georgia gets down. Like when they were down 14-3 against South Carolina, like that was 2 weeks of daycare we got. It's like they're just handing it out. It's just like here, take it. All you got to do is bend over and pick it up, guys. It's super simple. But the last time Missouri beat Georgia was in 2013. I don't know if that really matters because we're in a position now where the teams are built differently. Here's the thing I want to say, because I have been like Georgia all last weeks and seeing them in person. I think that we should take at least a second to give Mizzou its flowers for what it's done this year. Mizzou, I was talking to Dave about this game over text, and I was like, I looked up the composite rankings, and it came up at like 53 or something. Remember? And I freaked out. I was like, what is that? Like, I had no idea. And then I realized I was looking at the 2020 composite, and then they're actually in the top 25 now. So that's, I think, a statistical illustration of what Eli has done in terms of building the roster. So regardless of whether or not they win this game or even competitive in this game, that's not the metric in which we're going to judge Mizzou's season by. And I think they've already kind of exceeded expectations in a way that deserves praise. And I want to do that. So fair enough.
Big breakthrough season. They've guaranteed themselves a winning season, which Eli has not had yet.
Guys, we have such a good weekend.
And then if if Missouri just like wins on a field goal, like, do you think that they can like box out Georgia and like run the rest of the way? Like there's still some tough ones.
Well, I mean, yeah, they have a tough schedule.
You got to get past Tennessee. You got past Florida still, I think.
Yes, and then they have Arkansas, who we'll see what Arkansas is in a month. You fired the OC. Arkansas played way below its talent level so far. So we'll see.
Mizzou goes out and beats Georgia this weekend somehow in some fairy tale Star Wars type screenplay. Right. We talking top 4 CFP team in the rankings, right?
I don't think they'll get that high.
Because they're not undefeated.
Yeah, they'll get top 6.
But they're like right there with Oregon, right?
Yeah.
I think I would put them ahead of Oregon.
Be right there with Oregon.
It would help them a lot if K-State would beat Texas, because if K-State beats Texas, then they'd have 2 top 10 wins.
Good point.
So
yeah, that would put them as the highest ranked 1-loss team. And if Mizzou won the national championship, that would be the single most banana land result in college football of my lifetime.
I mean, it almost happened in our lifetime, Ari. They were knocking on the door.
No, I'm saying like with the way that the sport is built now.
Oh,
it's a much different sport than it was when we were kids. It's not there's no parity that.
We're talking about 2007. That's not that long ago.
I know, but I think that we could probably start looking at like 2013, 14 when the rankings just kind of started, stacking the deck in a way that it wasn't stacked before. So, Okay, guys. Well, how about another game when it comes to a ton of talent? And
nothing but bangers this week.
There goes. A great weekend. Football. I'm looking at the list here, and I'm like, damn. Alabama 7-1, 5-0 in SEC play. Their only losses to Texas. Playing LSU, Dave's preseason national champion.
Still hope. You never know.
But
the run
we're going to find out like this week who is probably going to be representing that side of the SEC in Atlanta. Maybe is Alabama. If Alabama comes out and rocks the boat here a little bit and wins by a pretty good margin, like, do we start reconsidering Alabama's, because we don't talk about them in the national championship context at all. Like, what does Alabama have to do to get back into that context? Because they're sitting there with a really talented team, just like waiting in the wings. No one's talking about them. And it's like rivalry game.
I think it's similar to the Ohio State thing, in which everybody's like, they see Ohio State at number 1 this week and they're like, okay, like we get it, but also like, let's get it moving. Like, I think nobody thinks they can beat Georgia. And I think with Ohio State, it's the same thing. Nobody thinks they can beat Michigan. So when you have this like roadblock at the end of the road, they're like, okay, it's like, you guys, congrats and all that stuff. Now, certainly I think the chances of Alabama beating Georgia are much higher than Ohio State beating Michigan. But I think that's a lot of why the conversation on Alabama is. And the fact that Alabama, we want to talk game control, they've had very little of it this year. And that's a factor too. They've had to, they're down double digits to Tennessee. They're messing around with South Florida. Obviously the Texas loss, they just got straight up beat. A&M does some weird stuff and he has, field goal blocked, and like they probably could have won that game. Like Alabama, they've come on strong in the second half, but they've played enough bad football and shown people enough bad football where people don't really take them very seriously.
I think Alabama is going to win this football game. I think that they are going to reassert themselves as a dominant fixture in the sport. There are 2 teams in college football that I think can line up and physically handle playing against Georgia, and Alabama is one of them. And I think the cream is going to rise back to the top. And even though they've been dysfunctional on offense at times, their quarterback competition was very weird. I think that we might have gone to bed on them a little bit too early. And I think this is the weekend that we start to remember what that was all about. So if Alabama,
I got a stat for you.
Let's hear it.
LSU's defensive front has Harold Perkins, has Mekhi Wingo, has Mason Smith. Who do you think has more tackles for loss this season between LSU and the fighting Coach Prime's, the Colorado Buffaloes?
By the way, Mekhi Wingo's out for this game.
Okay.
Keep going.
Oh. I'm kind of caught off guard by the Colorado stuff. I guess Colorado then?
Colorado has more tackles for loss this season than LSU.
Yeah, have they figured out how to use Harold Perkins yet, or is that still kind of happening?
They've been moving him around. It's not a lot of the coverage stuff. They've been moving him around. Ultimately, I'm a little confused because I can see a situation where Jaden Daniels just throws LSU and they win this ball game. But I think the more likely scenario is Alabama might have the best defense in the country. And I think Jalen Milroe against this LSU secondary, they'll be able to run the ball. I kind of with you, Ari. I think Alabama flexes here. I think they win by double digits.
Yeah, I got another stat for you here. Jalen Milroe is up to 9th in the country in sacks, which is with 29, which is still 10 less than Shedeur Sanders. So he's not quite.
But Shedeur is just padding his stats.
That's true. That's true.
Completion percentage stats.
And there's a part of me that's like similar to Texas, where it's kind of like it worries you a little bit that like they could get to Jalen Milroe on some important downs here with just force some misses and mistakes and stuff like that. I think Nick Saban has an extreme amount of respect for Jaden Daniels, and I kind of don't love on the LSU side that Alabama has like had 2 weeks to figure this out too, with an idle week. You know what I mean? And I think that's the neutralizing Jaden Daniels, who's been unbelievable. He's been a 76% passer in SEC play this year, 20-3 touchdown to turnover. Like this is like a Heisman stage type of moment for him in terms of being a finalist, maybe being a contender to win it. And I think that quarterback battle is going to be electric, but golly, it's hard to bet against Saban in this spot. As much as like in last year's game, Jaden Daniels pass and run, he had the ball 50 times last year. Like there needs to be a little bit more balance to not wear him out as good as he was last year against Alabama. But I think he could do something really special in this game, but I just can't really bet against Saban in this one.
Yeah. Milroe in his last 3 games, 779 passing yards, 7 touchdowns, 2 picks. Jaden Daniels in the last 3, 993 yards, 11 touchdowns, and an interception, which is why I think he's like the 3rd highest odds favorite to win the Heisman this year, which usually when teams have 2 losses in November, that's not usually the case with the quarterback position.
And I think Logan Diggs coming on has been really good for LSU too, to balance it out a little bit. He's rushed for over 90 yards in their last 4 SEC games, but Dave mentioned it, like the LSU secondary is a huge problem for this game, because that's look, Alabama is not going to kill you on some of the intermediate stuff, but they are going to chuck it on the secondary.
Yes.
All right. So
you want to bet Jalen Milroe passing yards over. That's your bet for this game.
It's going to get explosive. Yes, that's for sure.
There are just times where Jalen will just throw a ball and I'll just be like, holy crap, that was amazing.
Yes.
Chuck it deep.
Chuck it deep. And that goes to the next game. Penn State. I didn't want to do Penn State next, but if you yell chuck it deep, then I just kind of have to. It's like, yelling Candyman into the freaking mirror. Candyman, chuck it deep, chuck it deep. Say chuck it deep 3 times fast. Chuck it deep, chuck it deep, chuck it deep. They're laying 8.5 on the road at Maryland. Maryland had an awful loss last week. Truly awful loss. But it's the week before the Michigan game. Penn State is a few weeks removed from the Ohio State loss. They played grab ass for quite a bit. They could have potentially even lost to Indiana if Indiana's coach was interested in trying to win the game, but he wasn't. So that's been a pretty consistent criticism, I think, of Tom Allen here when he plays really good teams. But where are we at with Penn State? Is this a team that you think can, flex its muscles against Maryland on the road and make next week's game against Michigan a little bit more interesting?
I like James Franklin as a coach. I think last week I'm going to say is a wake-up call. And I think Maryland's a good team. But Penn State still has probably a top 5 defense. I think they prove it in this game. Get enough production to cover. So I'm going to lay the points here. Makes me nervous. This line has moved like 1.5 since Monday. So I'm not feeling great about that. But Penn State is still really good. I think the combination of the last 2 weeks, they're probably undervalued in the public side because they look like they couldn't beat Ohio State, and they go toe-to-toe with a pretty bad Indiana team. But I don't know how much people were paying attention to Maryland last week against Northwestern. It just looked like they just had no interest in playing. And
it was a very bizarre game. I was watching it. I watched a lot of it for no particular reason, and I thought it was just bizarre. Like it didn't look like it looked like a team that didn't practice yet. A little bit. I don't know. It's weird. Max?
I don't know if you guys caught this, but James Franklin did get a little ranty this week with his local reporters acting like, Penn State is the only team in America that gets harshly held accountable by their media for close wins. that kind of stuff kind of makes me feel like this is a little trappy, a little bit of a humbler, a little bit. But guys, like, let's get another drop going from Maryland here. Can I get a Kenny Loggins danger zone drop? Because go look at their schedule. We are like, this is backs against the wall week for the Terps, but like, there's no question. What they've got coming up after this, they started 5-0. Here's what they got coming up: Penn State, at Nebraska, Michigan, at Rutgers. Like 5-0 to 5-7 is like possibly on the table for this Maryland team. Like this would be the week of like look alive. Like let's like this is a do something kind of week. Like they are in the danger zone here, and they have got to show up in this game.
I look at Penn State's schedule, and they scored 63 against UMass. They scored 63 against Delaware. They did put up 38 against West Virginia, but for the most part, they haven't really been overly explosive offensively in a way that they flex their muscles against other Power 5 opponents. And like Maryland can score. Like if they look alive, they can score.
Can they score against Penn State?
I don't know. Okay, fine. I'm gonna lay.
I believe you in theory, but I don't believe that.
Illinois and Northwestern.
I just have a really hard time right now just laying multiple scores on the road. It's just a hard.
I get where you're coming from, but I just
this is a no bet game. I would never play this game in a million years in real life.
I'll have Penn State covering, but I'm not touching it.
Yeah, I'll take Penn State. Yeah, I don't know. I'm gonna go Maryland just to be different. I think that 2.5 or 2 scores for Penn State on the road against a team that has kind of fighting for its humility, like its image. Mm-hmm. Like this is a big game for Loxley. I think Maryland will be able to get points. This kind of strikes me as like a 31-24, 31-22 type game, maybe.
Maryland is not scoring more than 20 points this game, Ari.
No.
My advice to Penn State, Cam. I think you know what my advice to Penn State is this week. Thank you.
All right. Well, since you talked about coaches, Max, who get a little bit in their feelings, I think this is a nice little segue because we haven't talked about this on the pod yet. I've been asked on like 9 radio appearances, but not on the show yet. But Dabo Sweeney's rant this week to the caller, and like people think that I'm a Clemson hater. I think people are going to be surprised by my takeaway from this. But if you were living under a rock this week, a caller called in to a radio show. This is the Notre Dame Clemson preview here. 7-2 Notre Dame.
Tyler from Spartanburg's here, isn't he?
Yeah,
he's joining us for this segment.
When everyone started going through the records to see if Connor Stallion showed up at the games, can we go through our records? Has Tyler from Spartanburg called in to Sunday Sound Off at one point? Because we got to get him on. We got to get this dude on.
I will say that was a pretty he called into a radio show. He threw Dabo's salary in his face and then started talking about Jesus Christ. I didn't really know where he was headed in the question, but Dabo went a 5-minute rant about people not being grateful and lack of gratefulness outweighing, what was it, like expectations and great. It was long.
No, we have not enough appreciation. We have too much.
Not enough appreciation and expectation,
which,
right?
Shockingly, is not a Deion Sanders line. That is.
Notre Dame has been blowing the doors off of people. They're laying 3 on the road against the Clemson team that clearly isn't having a very good year. But first, I wanted to ask both of you, like, what your actual thoughts were of the rant.
It doesn't matter if you have the facts on your side. You look small. You are making $11.5 million. And shout out to the producer who probably should have cut that off, because you kind of put your coach in a tough spot, who you already know might have a little bit of a trigger that if he's being trolled for 2.5 minutes, he might fire. So it's kind of on the producer, but like if you're Dabo, even if you have the facts on your side, it's just not a great look. It's not a great look when you're congratulating yourself for having children as part of your rant, which I don't know what the percentage of workload
Congrats
is
on the sex.
Yeah, I don't know what the percentage of workload is on those two things. It's like, okay, like, so yeah, Tyler stepped across the line, obviously, and it was like very personal, but like, he's just a caller. You're the most public person in the state of South Carolina. You've a very accomplished coach. I get that it is what it is, but you just kind of have to be like, all right, Tyler, thanks for calling. Appreciate your support. We're going to try to get it right this Saturday and keep it moving. The facts of the case are sort of irrelevant to me. it says to me that if somebody's going to get under your skin, it doesn't tell me, oh, he cares. Of course he cares. But it's not becoming of a coach. I'm sorry.
I'm going to be honest with you guys. Due to me spending my whole week down the Michigan rabbit hole, I had not actually listened to the clip until like an hour ago.
Oh, okay.
I've seen
this is fresh for you then.
Lots of group text conversation about it. I see it, but I have not engaged in the audio, and I actually haven't heard the question. How bad was the question?
The question really kind of rambled. It was like it went off. It was somewhat disrespectful, but then he, after it was disrespectful, tried to walk it back, and like I didn't really know if the caller didn't come in like choosing violence. I don't think. I just think it got away from him a little bit.
Okay.
I think I don't know. It felt like he had some notes, and then he went off script a little bit, and then he was like attacking Dabo's like faith, and then like.
Did he attack Dabo's faith? He goes, I know you're a man of the Lord.
It was a convoluted question. Let's just say my guy John Sawatsky, Tyler could use some interview help from our guy.
I mean, it wasn't like he got onto the radio show and said, "Hey, you make $11.5 million. Why the hell do we have 4 losses? This is unexcusable." Like it was like a long yellow brick road of incohesion before we got to where we were. But
so like I'm nothing Dabo said was inaccurate except for the congratulating himself on being a father. But like
he said he's never done anything in his life that he's ever failed at, which but
that's
Max,
actually more true than
I think listening to it, I would say on both ends of it, like, maybe treat people with kindness. That's probably a good way to go in this kind of stuff. I think I'm always kind of amazed. Like, I know it's a trap, obviously, when you do the call-in show and and look, if these kinds of people are like going to say the stuff on the message boards, like some of them should call in and try it and see if it works. You know what I mean? Like, I think good luck to you on that. But like, I think doesn't play well, obviously. And I feel like what you don't want to hear is like this kind of stuff that leads a coach to get like so dug in that you're unwilling to change. And I don't think Dabo is unwilling to change, but it would be nice in that 5-minute like rant to hear one little like drop of like, oh, and by the way, like we're going to fix some stuff this offseason. We're maybe going to take a different approach on some of these things this offseason.
Right.
Instead of you need to have gratitude for everything I've given you in life. You know what I mean? Like sort of like, I'm not saying it should be like, what have you done for me lately? I get that point of view, but just a little bit of like, yes, I know it's bad and I'm already thinking about how to fix it actually would probably go a long way with people.
Yeah, right.
And I think it's worth noting also, I'm not a scholar on coaches' shows. I've listened to my fair share. We wrote a story about it a couple of years ago. I think it was Grace that did that. Forgive me if I don't remember who did the story. It was a very good story. But that was probably barely in the top 5% of rudest callers. It was not that crazy. Like we had a fan in person stand up and point at Jimbo, and there were rumors he was going to A&M at the Florida State coaches. They would say, "Where is your loyalty?" As though he had pledged a blood oath to coach the Seminoles forever. And then we had, I had to, when I was covering Tennessee, I listened to Jeremy Pruitt's radio show, which he was actually much better in those settings. But somebody asked him when he was going to, I believe the quote was, take his ass back to Alabama where he came from. Like, it just is what it is. I think the concept of coaches shows is kind of hilarious that we're still doing them, that these people have to sort of be tarred and feathered when they start losing games and then have people sort of bow at their feet when they're winning games. But, it's so, yeah.
Okay, so first of all, I don't know how you can like get mad at the producer for that, because like if I called into a show and I wanted the scorch earth, I'd be like, "Hey, I'm just calling to see how the punting is coming along," and then I would get on the radio and just go nuts. So
sure,
maybe cut the call, but I don't know how. I've always wondered, like, how is a producer supposed to know when someone's going to go rogue? But
it was lengthy. At some point, you can get in there and stop it.
Yeah. I agree with everything that you two just said. And Max, I think that the point that you made about, hey, we're going to get in there and fix, I think that is a really apt point. I think that that's good. That said, I've said a lot of negative things about Clemson on this show for the past 2 or 3 years. And I actually
I don't see you calling it, like,
but the thing that I wanted to say is I actually respect the hell out of Dabo Swinney and what he's done there. If you think about how many coaches have been hired in this sport in the last 10 years to coach good programs who have failed to make their places elite, it kind of reminds you of just how brilliant the coaching job that he has done is. I also think if you go back and you look at his background as a coach, that he did this the right long way. And I think that that's part of the reason why he's so messed up with NIL is because he looks at his own experience of I'm gonna start as an intern and work my way up the ladder to my money. But he did do that. Mm-hmm. So to call in and throw his salary in his face is a complete and utter lack of or disregarding everything that he's done in his career. As long as they're just handing him $11.5 million, he's being compensated $11.5 million because he built the program. It's not just to win a game every week. It's Clemson is a much better and different place now than it was before he became the head coach. That's what he's being paid for. So I understand as a man, if somebody's going to attack your life's work, that might get you in a tizzy. And as somebody who admittedly gets too far down the rabbit hole on Twitter with people who criticize me and what the Athletic is doing, like I understand the, lions don't care about the opinions of sheep, but this is a man calling in, talking to another man, having a conversation who is disrespectful. And I can understand how somebody in Dabo Swinney's position could react that way. So do I think I would have done that? I like to say no, but probably would have. Like I get really wound up about dumb callers, dumb comments and people on Twitter. Like I'm not above that. And I just feel like I sympathize with him a little bit. That said, the tenor of the call made me feel like Clemson's in trouble. So like it's a no-win scenario. It's like, okay, well, this is a desperate man who feels it slipping through his fingertips and quoting his record 8 years ago. I don't want to hear about how good you were in 2017. I want to hear about how good you're going to be next year, which brings us back to the point that you made. So I kind of was 50-50 on it of like, I can sympathize with Dabo Swinney because he earned that money. Pay that guy. Right. He earned it.
On the other hand, you can't. You also continue to earn it. You also can't respond to every loss by saying you people are part of the problem. You know what I mean? So it's like there's a give and take to that. But I'm generally I agree with you.
Yeah,
and I will say just as a big picture comment, if you're a winning coach at a big program, you're underpaid. If you're losing games at a big program, you're grossly overpaid.
And the thing that's just what it is tough about Clemson is the lack of portal activity and the lack of recruiting at the baseline level that made Clemson what it was during that Trevor Lawrence, Deshaun Watson run. You can make the case that Dabo Swinney, and I have many times, is not doing what he is being paid for if he's not going to engage in the full spirit of the game and how you fill out your roster. If you don't want to engage in that, then you are in a position that you're no longer serving the right way. You're not serving the players on your team. You're not serving the fans. You're not serving the university. You've got to do everything in your power to put as many good players on your team, whether it comes from high school or the portal. And I know that you like to promote within and like to see other people follow in your footsteps of how you built your career and your empire. But you're the coach of Clemson. If you are not engaging in the portal to the fullest extent, you are not doing your job, by which you're paying $11.5 million a year to do. So it's a very complex situation. That said, I'm not going to dunk on the guy for reacting the way that he did, because if somebody after 30 years of journalism or whatever, and all the awards were on my wall, said that I'm a hack and they called in and everybody was listening to it, I might react in a similar fashion, because just be respectful. It's not like the guy's not trying, I don't know.
By the way, we haven't touched the game. It is actually hard for me to conceive the idea of Clemson being 4-5. I'm not saying Clemson will win this game, but that's
on paper. I agree with you.
Considering people were picking them for the CFP at the start of the year, that is wild to actually think about that we're in this spot right now.
Unfortunately, I have watched Clemson this year, and they're going to lose this game by double digits.
Yeah, what's interesting is Notre Dame is a 1 foot away from being in the top conversation of the playoff, and maybe Notre Dame is just really good. I don't know. 33-20 game against Louisville. Good. They're just a really good football team. And Clemson's just not, and I know it's on the road, and I'm with you, Max. I thought they were going to win the ACC this year. They are a top 5 of the talent composite. But it just isn't working there right now. And I have a hard time. I don't know if Clemson that played Florida State shows up, they could win.
Good.
Let Garrett cook.
I'll take Notre Dame, but
yeah,
I think we're all on Notre Dame, but I think that I don't think it's going to be a walk in the park the way that Dave does. No. I think it's going to be something. Okay, so guys, this is what happens when the three of us get together. It's just us girls. We're talking. We're an hour and 10 in. So we're going to just do speed round here.
Yeah.
Ole Miss 7-1 against Texas A&M 5-3. It's a noon kick. This is, I don't know. Are we on Jimbo watch here?
I'll believe it when I see it on the Jimbo thing.
The line is 3.
I know.
The line is 3. Ole Miss is 7-1. They're having a really good year. Over/under is 53.5. Just real quick, what do you think?
I think this would be damaging for Jimbo Fisher for sure if they lose this game. Did you guys see some of the stuff Lane said this week?
It's very funny.
He said A&M's the most talented 5-3 team ever. He congratulated the group that collected their players. This is, but if you're Lane, here's my question to you guys. Okay, if you're Lane, would you rather beat Jimbo for a third year in a row, or would you rather let him get this one to ensure he's back next year? Because I don't know if you're Lane Kiffin. I know you love to poke the bear. Does he actually want a better head coach in College Station who will maximize that talent? I think there's no way he wants that.
The thing is interesting is that if they do go in and get like a really good coach from somewhere, and he has all these players at his disposal,
they've been doing that for a decade, though.
No, I know, but I'm saying they theoretically could win a national title in 2 years. Like they have the pieces.
You're shouting extend Jimbo Fisher. That's
why is he always poking? But I love it. I love that he pokes the bear. I don't know why he does it though.
I think that's just who he is. I will say Lane's very good at beating teams he should beat. They should beat the Aggies. They will.
I got A&M +3.
Yeah.
I always feel like I want to buy in on Ole Miss, and like every year it kind of feels like they're in this like 6-1, 5-1, 7-1 range, and then they disappoint me. I'm gonna go Ole Miss because it's at home, but I would not like it if it were on the road. So hopefully they don't disappoint me again. All right, Kansas 6-2, +2.5 at Iowa State, 5-3, 4-1, over under 54.5. Doesn't Kansas control its own destiny? No, it doesn't. It doesn't.
No,
but it's
5
close.
Teams with 1 loss.
Yeah.
And they have a loss.
All right. I know you don't believe in fishy lines. This one doesn't really make sense to me. And here's what also doesn't make sense to me. Kansas is hot. Public should be all over them. I looked up 93% of bets were on Iowa State in this game.
Ooh.
What?
Ooh.
Where are you looking at that? Sometimes I feel like you're wrong when you say that.
Action Network has data on bets.
Okay, so that's where you're getting. That's when you say that.
Yes.
Okay.
Kansas, man.
I like Kansas too.
Jalen Daniels is not necessarily out. I don't think we'll see him. He dressed last week. I don't think he's going to play.
Also, Bean is really fun to watch.
Well, fun to watch and good are two different things, but he's capable of winning this game and capable of. So I'm taking Kansas money line here. Personally.
The game's at night.
That's okay.
Just, I don't know.
Thanks, Aaron. There was some hope that Jalen Daniels will be back for this game. I think this back injury is no joke, and I think they're waiting until he's actually ready. Kansas is a big spot for them because you go back to year one, they beat Texas, they went 0-2 after that. Last year they beat Oklahoma State to clinch bowl eligibility. They went 0-4 after that. Like they got to be better after big wins. And it's interesting that Vegas is like all over this, right? Like you think
that they were laying,
fishy.
This was a weird game last year. Iowa State should have won, missed 3 field goals. Their defense has been really good. Iowa State's also kind of in a sneaky, interesting position here too. If they win this game, they've got a road trip to BYU, and then it's Texas and Ames, and then they go to K-State. Like it's not just about clinching a bowl for them, but like they got a chance to like kind of make this interesting. I think I'm gonna take KU +2.5 because I think it's going to be, but I think it could be like a 1-point game. I think this actually could be pretty close.
Max, do you believe in Iowa State? They're in that 5-team tie, and like I couldn't believe it last week because I'm like, I don't remember Iowa State doing anything this whole year. And I'm looking at the Big 12 standings, and I'm like, sure, why not?
Yeah. I think that you're not the only one who left them for dead at 1 and 2. A lot of people did, and kind of just stopped paying attention and assumed this gambling thing was going to wreck them, and they'd probably go, win 3-4 games or whatever. they've really turned it around. They really like Rocco Becht at quarterback. The defense is what it's been for the past few years. It's been really, really good. Gives them a chance. And they're just winning tough games. So wouldn't be surprised if Iowa State pulled this out. I think it's going to be really close. I'll go KU plus 2.5, but just because that number is tempting.
Mm-hmm. Okay, lastly, just real quick, just to get to a round number of 10 games to pick. Oregon 7-1, playing Cal 3-5 at home. Cal's 1-4 in the Pac-12, and the over/under is 59.5, and Oregon's laying 24 points. Did Cal make you think at all last week, or is it just going to be another Oregon bludgeoning?
I believe in Oregon bludgeoning.
Shout out to Fernando Mendoza. You guys know who I'm talking about?
Yes.
I'm a little worried about
it. I mean, that was close.
The 6
if you didn't know last week, we know now. Yeah,
I'm just not convinced Cal. I'm not convinced Cal can score against these guys. I think USC's defense makes people look like world beaters when they're maybe not necessarily.
It is unbelievable how stark the difference is between USC's defense and Oregon's. It's like you all kind of like, sometimes I feel like because it's in a different time zone and it's off on the west coast, that everybody just kind of assumes that that's all like one clump of teams. And it's like you can judge other Pac-12 teams based on like what USC is doing. And it's like watching USC play, because they've been lumped in. It's always USC and Oregon in recruiting all the time. Who's going to carry the flag for the Pac-12? Who's going to lead for the Big Ten? They're always together. Don't lump these two teams together. Oregon's defense is immeasurably better than USC's. And just because Cal scored 49 points last week doesn't mean that they're going to go light the world on fire. I think that Oregon is going to win, and they're going to cover the spread.
Physical, disruptive.
Oregon covers.
Dan Lanning and Will Stein. Great marriage.
Locks of the week. My lock is Georgia minus 15.5, mostly to antagonize Dave Ubben and his romantic view of the sport that we all love. What's your lock of the week, Dave?
My lock of the week is Kentucky minus 3.5 at Mississippi State. Mississippi State is not very good. I checked their record, and I was like, is there a game I'm forgetting about? No, there's not. I don't really get this at all. Kentucky's really good. They've lost to some good teams. They're maybe undervalued because of the way the Georgia game played out. They obviously lost to Tennessee. Give me Kentucky minus 3.5 as my lock of the week.
Max's lock of the week is juicy.
Lock of the week. It is one of the all-time us against the world games in the history of the sport. Michigan covers 32.5 against Purdue. I think I could write the pregame speech on this, right? Like, it's just so predictable what you would say to your team. You'd say, everybody's lying on us. We cheated our way to the top, saying we're a joke. Ryan Day's trying to get us banned from the Big Ten title game. Let's go out and show we're the best team in the country.
Well, what if they don't cheat this time?
Let's just absolutely take everything out on Purdue. And look, I think if you're Michigan too, it's such a deep team. Like, it's just next man up on the signal stealing. You know what I mean? Somebody's got to be doing it live. I'm sure they'll be okay.
Yeah.
Michigan's covering this number, and it's not even fair to Purdue that they've got to be the one that has to play Michigan. But like, it's just going to be, we're going to bully the hell out of you.
Did Michigan go from the team that everybody was rooting to disrupt the CFP and like knock Ohio State and Georgia and Alabama off their ledge, go to the most hated team in college football now? Like, does the general public just like,
oh, that's a good question. I don't know. Like,
didn't almost all of us pick Michigan to win the national title a week before this all broke?
I believe so. Yes.
I don't know. Yeah, 7 of us did. I didn't, but
I didn't really have an emotional attachment to it. I will say, the Michigan discourse, if they win this game like 23-13, will be unreal. Like, they better cover this, or at least come close to it. Like, if this is the game where they're not dominant, buddy, the conversation is going to change in a hurry.
I am confident that Michigan is absolutely not shook by any of this at all. That's what I think. I think Michigan is going to come out and just light up Purdue, who just lost to Nebraska last week in a game that was not close. I think it's a dominant one for Michigan.
By the way, shout out Matt Rule for the pregame and postgame speeches in that Purdue game. They went viral as part of the, I guess we'll call it a cinematic recap, whatever they call it, their GBR rewind show that they do in-house. Pretty cool stuff from Matt Rule.
Amazing stuff.
Yeah, shout out to Matt Rule in general for being who we thought he was, I think.
Aggressive competence.
Yeah.
It took a while, but
aggressive competence. Yeah. Like I said, it took a month to defrost, but we're here. We made it.
Pretty good.
Yeah. Okay. Next up, we have the Sickos game of the week, which I think, do we all agree is just automatically Iowa Northwestern?
Yeah.
The total is 30.5 now. Unfortunately, it moved.
We had that beautiful moment though.
What changed that? I don't get it.
All I know, you want to talk about the angriest team in America? I think you missed it.
I
was going to come out with dragon breath. Hey, it would be, Dave always likes to say the funniest possible outcome of Iowa games. Like the funniest possible thing now is if Iowa averages 41 points a game for the rest of the year.
I'm rooting. Baby, let's go.
Like Iowa just comes out Northwestern, has a hangover after doing what they did last week, and they just beat the crap out of them in a way that shows offensive efficiency that we haven't seen from them so far. I don't know. I think
it's going to be like just like Kirk Cousins. You like that after the game?
Ari,
I
have to say, Ari, as funny as Iowa making the playoff would have been, I think Brian Ferentz getting fired and then scoring 40 points and then winning the Big Ten title and beating one of these super teams or beating Michigan, say, in that championship game, somehow that's funnier to me than Iowa making the playoff.
It's like, we all got it wrong. His offense was actually awesome. Yeah. Okay, I already said my trap game, which was Texas-Kansas State. Doesn't really count, but it's my trap game. Dave, who do you have?
My trap game is Virginia Tech at Louisville. Be careful, Louisville. I know I halfway apologized to them on the last show, but I'm just not all the way in on Louisville. And Virginia Tech was kind of a disaster last year, but they've kind of turned a corner under Brent Pry. It's a winnable game, and I'm just still not all in on Louisville. And we'll see. If Virginia Tech plays the way they did against Syracuse, they will win this game. I know that was night, Lane Stadium, all that stuff, but, man, Virginia Tech looked good.
Max has a good one.
Max does have a great one.
That's a good one because they're good.
Fellas, we got Jacksonville State at South Carolina. The Gamecocks against the Gamecocks. Do we call it the Cock Game? Do we call it the Super Cock Bowl?
Cockfighters.
October Rising.
Cockfest. What do we want to call it?
Cockfest.
Cockfest?
Something like that.
Okay.
What was the mascot that Grace wrote about? Called Cock Commander.
Cock Commander. Yeah.
Yes, Cock Commander. Ari, have you seen Cock Commander tank in person?
I haven't. No.
It's breathtaking. It's one of the best things you'll ever see. It's a literal tank with a clear cage for I forget what the mascot's actual name is. It's not Cock Commander. I don't remember what it is. Okay. But the actual tank that they drive around is fantastic.
Beautiful.
Aaron's right. It's just cockfight.
Let's talk cockfight. Can we talk about cockfight? I'd love to talk about cockfight. Okay. Jacksonville State, that's a top 20 defense in stop rate, fellas. They're doing something.
Good.
They're really good. Yeah.
Richard's got it cooking. They're good.
They've got it cooking.
They've been a cover machine on these weeknight games too, guys.
Their quarterback, Zion Webb, dual threat dude. I think he's going to give South Carolina some problems in this one. I'm not saying this is going to be a stunner, but I think 16.5 might be too many points. And this would be, if you're Shane Beamer in South Carolina, this would be an extremely bad way to get your 7th loss. It's a little bit of a sicko. It's a little bit of a trap. I think it's going to be a lot of fun to watch. It's going to be quite a cockfight.
I think I do like the number though.
And we mentioned this last week. South Carolina's missing 7 offensive linemen. Their best receiver is out.
I should also add, this is, if I want to mention stop rate, this is the worst Power 5 defense in the country in stop rate too. They can run into some trouble.
The elements are there, Max. I hadn't really considered it, and then when you said it, I was like, oh man.
And it's one of those okay, we're at 6 losses. We got to win out now. It's all right. Here's the former FCS team on the schedule. Let's kind of look past this one. I would not look past this one.
It's a great trap game.
It's one of the best trap game picks of the year, to be honest. Okay,
it really is.
An hour and 23 minutes is just downright obnoxious. If you were here from start to finish on the live YouTube channel, you're a real one. I don't know how you did it. I don't know how I did it. I haven't eaten lunch yet. Daddy's getting hungry, so we're gonna.
I'll
say goodbye until
after this. I'll pick up some raw meat, but
yeah, cook it in your oven for me. No, not your oven, your dishwasher.
Skillet.
Thank you guys so much for listening to the latest edition of Until Saturday. Be sure to be following the podcast wherever you listen to your podcasts, so you'll be notified when new episodes are up. We always appreciate the 5-star reviews and rankings. Helps the show grow. Any way that you can interact on the YouTube channel or the podcast channel is a huge help to us. Again, we'll be live on Thursday Thursdays for the rest of the year, Saturday nights reacting to the games, and Sunday for our Sunday sound off. And the next time we talk to you guys will be Saturday night after another amazing day of college football. Thank you so much. We'll catch you guys next week. For Max Olson, not next week, Saturday. Max Olson, Dave Ubben, I'm Ari Wasserman. Thanks so much for listening to the latest edition of Until Saturday.